Welcome to Palmetto Sports Daily. It's Talking Tuesday. We got plenty to get to with our teams around the state. And also important to note, it's State Fair opening day down here in Columbia. So I got my popcorn, but more importantly, I've got this popcorn locked in for the cinema that we're going to be talking about in this Talking Tuesday breakdown. Wow. But guys, let's get started here with some South Carolina talk. Obviously, coming off a bye week here, got a big win over Kentucky. You would ideally think that they're going to try and keep that momentum rolling here into LSU game week. We got a chance to catch up with Shane Beamer earlier this afternoon, and he talked about, this is his first trip as the head coach going into Death Valley, whatever Death Valley means to you, this Death Valley in Baton Rouge. So we talked to him about that, and he kind of gave his perspective on what that's going to be like for his program this coming Saturday.
You can't simulate 100,000+ probably heavily intoxicated Louisianans down there, and which is going to be awesome. I mean, that's what you want to coach in those environments. But I would say the same thing that Coach Kelly said about coming into Williams-Brice Stadium last year, which is a loud environment. Like, you can control the crowd with how you play, and that's what we need to focus on.
Guys, obviously a big game for this team, going in 3-2, and you really want to, get that speed going for this team as you hit a really tough stretch of games going into the month of October. And, obviously this game last year was a big one for Lenora Sellers. He might have it circled a little bit because he wasn't able to finish out this game, and, the tide shifted, and this was a big part of his journey. So specifically with this year's team now, guys, what are you looking for heading into this game down in Baton Rouge? Carmine, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, just for Lenora Sellers to finish healthy, because you guys remember very well the game last season at Williams-Brice toward the beginning of the year. That could have totally gotten the Gamecocks definitely into the college football playoff. I mean, that was really the one game that was the blemish on their resume, where you look at that season and they were up by 17 points. Lenoris goes out, and Robbie Anderson comes in, who almost had a great win for Wake Forest over Georgia Tech. That was just sad to not see him close that one out a couple weeks ago. But and then they had the field goal chance to try and stay in the game and missed it, and ended up having a great season but not make it to the college football playoff. So I just think put the keys in Lenora Sellers' hand and let him get the NASCAR started around the track, because he's going to be the meal ticket for the entire game. And Kevin, like we've been talking about, letting Lenoris run, designed runs for him, because the running backs haven't been up to the level of Lenora Sellers. But if you look at the Gamecocks' next 5 games, this is actually the one against the worst ranked team, and I think LSU's 11th in the country. So like you said, Julia, got to get it started off well. But Kevin, what do you think your headlines from this one?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a game where really more is not in the balance, but it really is. Because if South Carolina goes into LSU, beats 11th ranked LSU, then suddenly those next 4 games, they don't become winnable, but you can see them having a shot. And you mentioned, Carmine, how they're all top 6 ranked opponents, or top 8, I believe it is, going forward. It's number 6 Oklahoma, number 8 Alabama, number 4 Ole Miss, number 5 Texas A&M. If Carolina goes and plays well and beats LSU in Death Valley with 100,000 people there, then you start thinking, okay, maybe this is something that the Gamecocks can do. And suddenly picking up a couple of wins in those next 4 games after this becomes a little bit more realistic. If they go into the Death Valley and they get blown away by LSU, then I think we're pretty much at the sky is falling for the rest of this season, because I don't know when South Carolina is going to win until they get to that coastal Clemson stretch at the end of the season, Teagan.
We've talked a lot about these upcoming opponents, and after the Kentucky game, that was a bit of light right there. That was kind of one of those games that, and at the time, Alabama, that I thought, these are the winnable games on the schedule. At this point, I'm kind of teetering. I would like to see the momentum that we saw in the Kentucky game continue into this next game at LSU, but if it doesn't, if that bye week, kind of put a stop to that momentum, then that's going to be a really big issue for the Gamecocks. And, as much as we're talking about Lenora Sellers and those designed runs and leaning on him, again, that puts your quarterback at more of a risk for injury. And then where do the Gamecocks go from there if they don't have Lenora Sellers? I know that we want to put the team on the back of Lenora Sellers, and he's the best player on the team and all that, but it's just tough looking at this team as they go into LSU, Julia.
Yeah, a couple things to note, kind of building off everything you guys were saying. I mean, the first question he was asked today is, what is his definition of a balanced offense? And he said himself that they really need to make strides in the run game because that really hasn't transpired the way that they wanted it to going into this season. And then to the point, too, of, going up and facing an LSU defense that has only improved over these first 5 weeks. That's going to be extremely difficult to, go up against a team like that, especially after everything that they've been through in these first 5 weeks. So you really want to see that. And then, of course, these stretches of games, Shane Beamer said, of course, you got to take them one at a time. But if you don't want to play games like this, you shouldn't be in the SEC. He says his guys are ready to go, take this on and take all these games for what they are. And it's, an opportunity for them to perform. One more note, got to put some respect on his name. It's Robbie Ashford, Carmine. Good dude here at South Carolina.
I'm so sorry. Robbie Ashford, yes. And almost a great dude. Well, I shouldn't say that. He almost had a shining moment at Wake Forest, Robbie Ashford. And he played well in that LSU game last year on that final drive. He got them in field goal range. Unfortunately, the field goal was a little wayward. But, Kevin, here's my idea of a balanced offense. Lenora Sellers throwing the ball, Lenora Sellers running the ball.
Sounds good to me.
All right, well, hey, let's balance out this Gamecocks and Tigers talk. Let's talk about Clemson because, just like I got Robbie's name wrong, I think Julia had a little butter on the popcorn fingers because we couldn't get the soundbite in about Dabo's former quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, and the Jaguars defeating Julia's Kansas City Chiefs. Somehow the WIS systems couldn't quite communicate.
I'm so sorry. I was just trying to get ready. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready, Carmine. I was trying to stay ready. Unfortunately, we won't have that soundbite, but we can talk about it. I'm grown enough to talk about it later on in the show.
Okay, sorry. So the Kansas City Chiefs, unfortunately, will have to re-get ready because former Tiger Trevor Lawrence and former Tiger Travis Etienne Jr. Had a great game, and they took down the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Dabo very proud of Trevor Lawrence because despite falling down twice, he managed to run in for the game-winning touchdown with about 30 seconds left. Sorry, Julia. The Kansas City Chiefs, I think, will right the ship. And you have several championships and the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce relationship to lean on. But speaking of the current Clemson quarterback, here's Dabo Swinney comparing Cade Klubnik to a superhero after his superhuman performance, 22 for 24 passing, more than 250 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns in the win over North Carolina, 38-10. Here's Coach Swinney on reminding Cade that he could be a superhero.
You can do something about it. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to, you can do something. I mean, you don't have to, you're Superman. You ain't got to stay down in this hole. You can just fly right out of it, right? Remember who you are. You're Batman, but my message was more, you're Cade Klubnik. Just be Cade. And so, he was awesome. That was obviously a tremendous performance by him. And so hopefully that can, get him back on track and just playing with the type of confidence that we need him to play with because he's a really good player. And just good to see him, playing free.
All right, and Cade Klubnik there being compared to a superhero, but reminding you of your identity is what Dabo is trying to get at there with the analogy, and maybe Clark Kent going into the phone booth for a few games, now coming out as Superman for the North Carolina game. But Julie, I know I was giving you a tough time about the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you think about Cade Klubnik turning the corner, it seems like, potentially? I'm not saying North Carolina is the best team. We've seen them be one of the worst teams in Power 4, but just nice to see them get over the hump.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is something that you really wanted to see from them, back in the LSU game. This is what everybody expected that they were going to look like out of the gate with that game. Obviously, it's taken them a little bit of time. And you notice over these years that some of these teams have struggles with slow starts. Obviously, Clemson, not usually one of those teams, but it's been that case this year. You got to weigh it as it is. I mean, North Carolina, maybe not the best team that you could have put up a performance like this on, but you did anyways. And Cade Klubnik looked phenomenal. And all it takes is one performance like this to get him back in the driver's seat, writing his own story. I mean, a lot of stories were written for him in the preseason, and he's been trying to balance that this whole entire season so far. And so it was nice to see him go out there with that confidence and, really get the job done. And then everybody just kind of look right, and the consistency looked really good, and you just got to hope that they are able to maintain that consistency moving into future weeks, Kevin.
It is. Off topic for just a second. They announced earlier this afternoon that the Hulu series on North Carolina football that was supposed to be behind the scenes following Bill Belichick this year is not going to air. I can't imagine why they pulled the plug on that one. But it just sets up, it took like 22 years for The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan last season documentary, to come out. I can't wait for 20 plus years from now when we see the behind the scenes of what's been going on in North Carolina with Bill Belichick this season. But Julie, like you said, it doesn't matter who this performance came against. This should have come against Troy a couple weeks ago. That's when we should have seen Clemson pulling out these stops and putting out big numbers. But it came now. You take what you can get and you move forward. And hopefully for Clemson, this kind of gets the wheels moving, Teagan.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it does. If this is the moment of confidence that the team needed in order to get back to the group of guys that we talked about in the preseason and the offense and defense that we thought we would see, then that's great. But I'm going to be the pessimist here and say it was UNC that they played, like one of you guys said, one of the worst teams that we've seen in the ACC and kind of in college football at the moment. So I'm hoping that Clemson kind of keeps this momentum going as we go forward when they play Boston College, but we will have to see, and we'll also have to see what's on the other side of the break here on Palmetto Sports Daily. Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily, where we continue to talk about Coastal Carolina's struggles both in Conway and on the road. The Chants were at Old Dominion this weekend, and they lost 47-7. I mean, what do I even have to say here? Coastal Carolina, again, with the offensive struggles. You look at their total yards compared to ODU's. Coastal had just 189 compared to 619. They had 12 first downs compared to 30. And then looking at the season so far, they're only averaging 13 points per game. So where do they go from here? Well, that's the question. And head coach Tim Beck says it's really back to the drawing board once again. But on the other side of things, he also didn't have an answer.
We went backwards. It's very disappointing, and I'm the head coach. It falls on me. At the end of the day, I just told the team early in the game we hurt ourselves with some of those things, and we chased a good football team. Credit goes to Old Dominion. They're a really good football team. I knew it going in. I talked to our football team about it. Their quarterback, they're playing with a lot of confidence, as I told you guys in the media. And boy, we fed the monster early, and didn't help them at all.
Coastal Carolina has the worst offense in the Sun Belt. Their next opponent, ULM, has the third worst in the Sun Belt, but they're at least averaging 22 points per game. So is this a winnable game for Coastal Carolina? I really hope so. It's one of the worst teams in the league that they're facing, but then you look at Coastal and they are the worst team in the league. So, guys, we'll have to see. Not a lot of hope from Coastal fans. Lots of accounts on Twitter literally called Fire Tim Beck. There's even an account called the Fire Tim Beck Tracker, and every single day they tweet, has Tim Beck been fired yet? No. Every single day, without fail. So that's things in Conway for you. Kevin, how about down in the Low Country?
Hold on, Teagan. I wanted to ask, has anyone seen this drawing board that Tim Beck keeps going back to and wanting to go to? That's the question I see most on social media is, where is this drawing board he keeps going back to?
Yeah, I don't know if he has like an actual chalkboard or something that he goes to ask all of these questions. But that's just been his answer a whole bunch of times this season. And on the one hand, I get that with their quarterback situation, Emmett Brown was out. I think that was kind of going to be their go-to guy. And then they thought MJ Morris would be the one who would lead this offense. And then that didn't work out either with all of those turnovers in those first few games. And now Tad Hudson I mean, he does what he can, but at the end of the day, I don't think that first drawing board included Tad Hudson on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a tough weekend here in the Low Country for Charleston Southern. The Buccaneers finally coming off a win over South Carolina State a couple of weeks ago. They went on the road to Gardner-Webb this past weekend, looking to get back-to-back wins for the first time since early 2023. And it looked good, and it was basically two plays that kept CSU from coming home with a victory. A Hail Mary to end the first half. Gardner-Webb throws a long touchdown pass that puts them in the lead at the end of the first half, and then things are tied late in fourth quarter. Late in regulation. Looked like CSU was going to be able to push things ahead and go into overtime in this one. Gardner-Webb kicks, I believe it was a 48-yard field goal. Didn't see anyone at Gardner-Webb having that kind of leg, but it puts the Bucs down for good, and they come back with a loss to Gardner-Webb as they are getting ready to be back home this weekend. As for the Citadel, they were off this past weekend on their bye week. They return home this week when they play host to Valdosta State. A tough Division II school for the Citadel to match up with, and they're coming off a victory on the road a couple of weeks ago. Both of their wins have come on the road, so looking to see if the Bulldog can pull things together and get a victory at Johnson-Hagan Stadium this weekend. We're going to hear more from head coach Maurice Drayton coming up later this week. But I want to move to basketball, and the NBA was here in the Low Country this past week. We talked about it a good amount last week with the Charlotte Hornets holding their preseason camp over at the Citadel from Tuesday through Saturday last week, and it culminated with an exhibition game over at the North Charleston Coliseum against the defending NBA champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, this past Sunday. A record crowd at the North Charleston Coliseum, 11,371 people on tap to see this game. Wow. That is the most people that have ever been at the Coliseum to see a basketball game. So a huge crowd, and that huge crowd found out about 60 minutes before tip-off that Oklahoma City did not bring their top 8 players to come and take part in this matchup against the Hornets. That includes the defending MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Alex Caruso didn't come. Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren wasn't here. Jalen Williams didn't make the trip. That was just among some of the guys that the coach mentioned, like I said, 1 hour before the game, after all the tickets had already been bought for a sold-out crowd, that they were not going to make the trip. Did it matter in the game? No. Oklahoma City still won by 20 over the Hornets. But I just can't believe that. And people were talking to me on social media saying, it was an exhibition game. What did you expect? They weren't going to play much anyway. Yeah, I know they weren't going to play much. That's not the point. The point is we didn't sign up for the Sacramento Kings to come to town. We didn't sign up for the Portland Trail Blazers, teams that have absolutely nobody that anyone is going to pay money to see other than just go and watch a basketball game. They paid to see the MVP and the defending NBA champions come to town, and we didn't get to see that. And it's no one's fault on the Hornets. That their staff was amazing all last week, and they brought all their players. Lonzo Ball played a good part of the first half, sat out the second half. That's what you expect in a preseason game. You don't get to see the stars the entire game, but you get to see them come out, play for a couple minutes, do some nice moves, and then go to the bench and cheer on the rest of the guys. And it would have been one thing if they had brought these guys and they just sat on the bench and waved and they get introduced and everyone gets this, oh, look, there's the MVP from last year. He's here in Charleston. That's cool. Didn't even get him on the plane. And you would think they live in Oklahoma City. They would want to get out of Oklahoma City at some point and come to a place like Charleston. After living in Oklahoma for so many years, gosh, but didn't happen. So big thumbs down to the Oklahoma City Thunder for their trip to Charleston this past weekend.
Give us one of them. Give us a big thumbs down. Is it one or two, Kevin?
How about two? Two big ones.
And
I'm told
we'll
I have
be
to go
right
to break.
back.
I have more to say
Hopefully
about how
with
much
two
I hate
thumbs up.
Oklahoma City. Whatever. We'll be back.
Guys, I had to pull the popcorn back out because I don't think we're done with this conversation. I think Kevin's a little red in the face. He's got a little bit more to say. My shirt, his shirt, the popcorn, the floor is yours, Kev. Let's keep it rolling. I'm just
saying, a little courtesy would be, give us a heads up a couple of days before. Hey, they're not traveling here. They don't want to make the trip. We are saving them because we have extra preseason games this season. I would be on board with that. I would understand that. Just give us a heads up. Don't tell us an hour before the game. Carmine.
Yes. And thank you, Kevin. We might have to go back, but just for a brief break and a little rest and a breather. But I'm completely 100% on the same page with you. Totally disrespectful to the fans in Charleston who only get very few opportunities to actually see NBA players. And like you said, I'm sure this was orchestrated days in advance, where it's not like, oh, okay, well, we're on the tarmac and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander all of a sudden says, I don't want to come, and now it's a last-minute thing. And still they would have had more time to let the fans know, even if that ridiculous situation actually happened, that they weren't going to be coming to play the Hornets and the buzz would be lost in this game. But also, fans are paying ticket prices that they think they're going to get a certain return on their investment of seeing this championship-level team and multiple all-stars, and the entire starting five is not even there. Like you said, the top 8 players. So it's like the new level of when players sit out, during games in the regular season, where if you're in a pro market, you can see that team maybe another time. But if you're in Charleston, you're not going to get hardly any other opportunities. So definitely shiesty move, very disrespectful to the fans by the Thunder, and just sad to see that.
I wanted to say one other thing. There was 2 kids sitting next to us from where we were shooting the game on the upper level. One kid was wearing a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander jersey. Summer Hector talked to him during the game. She said, are you upset? He goes, yes, because I told my friend that Shai was coming, and then he told me Shai wasn't coming, and I told him he was a jerk for saying Shai wasn't coming because Shai was going to come, and then Shai didn't come. So that's what you get, Shai. You made a little kid cry. I hope it was worth it to stay in Oklahoma City for another night. We'll be right back after this.
We've got one more mention here on Palmetto Sports Daily. Gotta give a shout out to Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces, who took a 2-0 lead over the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA Finals, which is now a 7-game series this year. So they head to Phoenix for Game 3 on Wednesday, but they looked dominant in these first 2 games. I mean, Game 1, pretty close, a 3-point game, but Game 2, they just led the whole way. Asia averaging 25.7 points per game and 10 rebounds. So looking to see if they can bring another championship to Las Vegas, and she's just cementing her legacy as potentially one of the best players of all time. And another quick shout out to our producer, Nick Harvey, who is the employee of the quarter here at WIS. We thank him for everything that he does for us here on this show, and we will catch you tomorrow.